Payton Kirkland is committing this Saturday. Also, which Big Ten head coaches would make the best father-in-law, and which 3 MSU players would we want to join this year's Michigan State football team? All with Austin Smith of the Only Podcast. Let's have a fun one. Let's go.
Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is the best people in the world. Of course, I'm talking about the listeners, the viewers of Locked On Spartans, but I'm also talking about this gentleman over here. His name is Austin Smith of the Only Podcast, and he is a friend of this here show. Before we get to him, let him talk. Hey, please rate, review, and subscribe to this here podcast, your YouTube channel, however you digest this, and also lockedonspartans@gmail.com. If you ever want to reach out with a mailbag question, which we will get to here in a hot second, but until then, I guess I'll let this strapping gentleman next to me talk for a little bit. Austin, how on earth you doing, man? You doing okay?
I'm great. First of all, I have to compliment the opening of your show. Like, the production value, when I compare it to the show that John and I run, is really I don't know. I'm feeling very like group of 5 amongst the SEC Big Ten right now. So it's impressive. But no, man, things are good. We're within arm's reach of football season, and we can, as much as I'm excited to talk about recruiting, I am very excited to talk about actual games here in a few weeks. So yeah, we're winding down, thank God.
I could feel my heart beat faster as you're talking about games, because we're under 45 days here, man, and I got to start hydrating here. So thank you for the compliments on the production that we do here. I couldn't tell if you were impressed by the plastic hanger that this jersey's on. This giant picture with the world's biggest glare on it that you can't make out for the life of you, or the empty fireball fifth behind me. Whatever it is that impresses the people, we are here to wow the watchers and guests of Locked On Spartans. So yeah, here we go, man. We're tired of talking about recruiting. So Austin, you know what? I'll give you the choice here. Also recently in the news for Big Ten football, Jim Harbaugh, he goes to a rally, expresses his views on pro-life versus pro-choice. So I'll either let you comment on your thoughts on Roe v. Wade. I can chip mine in as well, or we can talk about recruiting, I guess. Which way do you want to take this?
I'm going to take the safe route and go. I'm going to choose recruiting.
Okay.
All right. Wow. Final answer.
I don't call him Austin Wet Blanket Smith for nothing, so let's talk about recruiting right here. So, the news of potentially the weekend, hopefully coming up, we'll see. Payton Kirkland, offensive tackle, the number 25 ranked offensive tackle at his position, also a top 300 player in the country, is slated to pick between Alabama, Florida, Miami, Oklahoma, and our Michigan State Spartans. Listen, we could talk more about Payton Kirkland if he commits on Saturday, but this isn't even health of the program, Austin. I just want to know the health of you. Recruiting has been popping off so far. June was thrilling. July, a roller coaster with guys committing, guys not committing. Has Mel Tucker's relentlessness towards recruiting been healthy for you as the fan, or has this been detrimental? Because this offseason we used to enjoy, no longer. But is it a net positive or net negative for the health, you think?
I honestly, it's hard to. It's almost hard to answer. Like, as a. I would say that I think overall it's probably, for the health of the program, certainly a good thing. I mean, I think what he's done in terms of, I was saying this to John the other day, like, John Kirby, my co-host on the Only Podcast, should not just a random guy, but we were talking about how there is something to be said for being on the graphic, like being in these conversations, and no matter what happens with Kirkland, the 4 programs that you just listed that he is choosing between Michigan State and those 4 programs, like, those are blue bloods through and through. Those are teams that you never like seeing on the recruiting trail, but you have to go against if you want to land guys that will ultimately allow you to become a national title contender. And Mel Tucker has stated from his very first day that is his aspiration and goal for this program. And I think while it makes my blood pressure rise, and as much as I'd love to just be, comfortable, going 6-6 every year, if you want to run with the big dogs, these are the things you have to do. So it's funny because I talk about on our podcast, like self-awareness all the time as a program, like an Iowa or a Wisconsin. In a lot of ways, like they know that probably once, maybe twice every 4-year cycle, when all the cards fall right, Northwestern, another great example of this,
of course,
they're going to be competitive. But in those other 3 years, you just show up, have fun, tailgate, empty some more fireball fits, and call it a season. But I think Michigan State has higher expectations, and this recruiting is he's leaning into it. And really, no matter what happens, it's a tangible step forward this year. Kind of no matter what happens the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I had this conversation just with myself earlier this week. It's like, you miss out on some big guys like Jelani Thurman, Elliott Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the list kind of goes on, but it's not crazy because you still do have that list of good news here. So, yeah, this is just uncharted water still, which I feel like this is the last offseason I could use that term, uncharted waters. Yeah. I feel like that's been the official slogan of this podcast when we're talking about football and the Mel Tucker era, but I wonder if Mel Tucker realizes that we're all in this too. We're relying on Mel, we're relying on the kids, we're relying on the staff to get things done. But let's talk about us for a second, Austin.
Yeah.
Let's talk about us for a second, all the listeners and viewers. We're also being asked a lot for too, to go through all this 12 months a year. Yeah, sure, we're in a dead period right now, but like I said, we got a guy committing this weekend. What I'm trying to say is I want a handwritten letter from Mel Tucker thanking us for our service.
I don't think that's not too much to ask for. And I do think it's an interesting point, though. As fans, getting invested in this is like a treacherous thing, because you are at the end of the day putting a lot of energy into the decision of a 17 or 18-year-old kid who could be very easily influenced by social media or by his friends, family, parents, other players from his teams, and they could change your decision overnight. I mean, guys flip every day. And, recruiting is a fickle game in that way, that you really want it. And it's you almost treat it like it's a whole nother sport. But you have to remember, at the end of the day, these are kids that are making these decisions. And, that's the part that I try to grind. I did try to touch grass from time to time and remember that. But it's tough right now. When all we've got is baseball. As much as I love baseball, I'm thinking about college football. It's just not even a competition. So there's some humbling moments that come along with it.
Yeah, if you're like me, it's just you're a Tigers fan, and what has that done for you the last decade? Or or if you're a golf fan, you're just watching Rory McIlroy just come up short another major, and that makes me sad. So MSU recruiting gives me happiness every once in a while. But yeah, it's just like you said, on the surface, I could disguise this as we're just excited for our football team. We're worried about the health of our football team. And it goes down to recruiting. And then you scratch the surface, and a lot of my happiness in the summer is predicated on the decisions of 17 and 18-year-old kids that, and this is a very seminal moment for me in my life. I don't know why this is such a landmark event in my life, but a lot of these kids weren't alive for the 2004 Pistons NBA championship. These kids don't know who the going to work Pistons are, and that breaks my heart here if I could just be locked on Pistons for a hot second. But we're talking about kids born in 04. Geez, I was in 7th grade in 04. Now here I am, grown man. I got a child. I think I still have a marriage. I don't know. I haven't seen her in a while. So we'll touch base with that after I'm done recording.
Tough.
But here we are.
It's better not to think about it. Don't do the reverse.
Right, exactly.
You're going to drive yourself crazy. I had the first time you have that moment is when you graduate college and you're like, oh wait, I'm older than all of these guys now.
Correct.
And then you start realizing that I was paying attention to, speaking of baseball, the MLB draft, and the kid who goes number 1 overall, Jackson Holliday, is Matt Holliday's kid, who I remember every year of Matt Holliday's career. And then the second kid is Andrew Jones's kid. And then there was 3 or 4 other sons, and I'm like, I've already got to deal with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I don't know if I have the ability to deal with this moving forward. So the lineage thing, I texted that to my dad, and I was like, oh God, I feel old. And he's like, I was like 30 something when Matt Holliday was born. He's like, you got a ways to go. I'm like, all right, thanks, Dad. Touch grass.
I know.
Touch grass moment.
I had this conversation with Connor. I think this either could have been a week ago or 5 months ago. I have no concept of time anymore. But like, it was what makes you feel old as a sports fan. And one was like, okay, like Antonio Gates Jr., for example, kids of athletes you watch growing up, they're going to college. Okay, number 2 is like complaining about alternate uniforms that like when you actually start to look around, you realize like all the kids actually think they're sick. It's like, oh snap, now I'm a dinosaur. And then number 3 is like, right, of course. Or like number 3 is like when you're watching clips from like the mid 2000s, like let's say the Drew Neitzel game when he hit that 3 against Wisconsin. So the camera quality looks like it was from 1972. And like back in the day, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm actually at the game. This is great. So that's like the holy trinity for me of like feeling.
Yeah, when you remember watching those games on TVs that weighed more than your car,
right? Yes.
Like that's what I remember. Yeah, of seeing every pixel of the game.
Absolutely, all 4 pixels that the screen was able to hold. So there we go. How about that for a first segment? Just a little bit of recruiting and a bit of existential life crises right here. We are rocking and rolling with Austin Smith right now. We're going to get into the mailbag here in a hot second, but I actually got to say goodbye to Austin's lovely face here because I got to hawk some Built Bar, baby. And why am I doing this? Well, of course, yeah, Built Bar, they are proud partners of this show, but I also am a proud partner of you. I care about you, and Built Bar cares about you in 3 ways. That's right. Count it 1, 2, 3. The first way they care about you is they love those taste buds of yours. And they take care of those taste buds of yours with their Built Bars, their Built Puffs, wrapped in 100% real chocolate. They actually taste like what is on the wrapper. You're not biting into some granola bar or some power bar that tastes like you're eating sawdust with some wax around it. Like, no. I got sent a package of Built Puffs. They're s'more flavored. I don't want to exaggerate, but it changed my life spiritually, mentally, and physically. Reason number 2, Built Bar cares about you. They take care of your body. That's right. They're low calorie. They're like 130 calories, 150 calories, 17 grams of protein in a lot of these, and the quality or the amount of sugar, very, very low. The amount of quality, very, very high. Reason number 3, they take care of you. They like your wallet. They love your wallet. So when you go to Built.com, you're going to smash in promo code LOCKED15. That's all one word, LOCKED15. And that's going to get you 15% off of your order because Built Bar cares about you. One more time, Built.com, promo code LOCKED15. Go get yourself some Built Bars. And before we welcome Austin Smith back onto the show, hey, thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Austin, did I sell you on those Built Bars? Are we ordering some?
Yeah.
Hang up, or
quite honestly, if you want to send me some of those puffs, like just that would be wonderful.
Like the Built Bars go hard. The puffs, like out of control. And like I will talk them up and down, even off the camera, off the microphone. Anyway, we have a big mailbag question. This actually came this morning. So look at Sam, emailer Sam, coming up with a segment for us just in the nick of time. So shout out to you for producing some of this podcast here. He writes in, I've thought about this a lot. If you could add any 3 players from the last 10 years to this year's MSU football team, who would they be? He goes on to write, my answer would be 2013 Darqueze Dennard, 2015 Jack Conklin, and hot take, and this is a hot take, 2015 Trayvon Pendleton, because I love fullbacks and he's electric. That's a hot take, but damn it, it's one that he's standing by, so I absolutely love it. You know what? Can I just go back a conversation topic? Mm-hmm. We got to take football players from the last 10 years. Okay, that eliminates nearly every player that was there when I was at Michigan State. So, or at least the first 2 years, like freshman, sophomore year, like those Kirk Cousins teams, like the BJ Cunningham teams, like, nope, we're out. So there we go. Just aged another 5 years saying that out loud. So here we are. So who wants to dance first, Austin? Do you want to bang out your 3 or?
Yeah, sure. So
a lot of good names.
I got to tell you, Sam stole a couple of mine, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to have to pivot on the spot. I will say that just to speak to those, Jack Conklin is the easy number 1 answer for me. By far, easily number 1. This team, as you look at it this year, the areas where you're a little bit nervous about depth, there may be no stars, offensive line, pass rush, and secondary. To me, that's kind of like where I started when I was thinking about how do I approach this. But given that Conklin's kind of, I'm gonna let him be taken already. And then the other one was Darqueze Dennard was definitely on my list as well. You can never go wrong with adding a shutdown corner. I love the Trevin Pendleton pick as Connor Hayward's biggest fan.
Sure.
A semi version of him back on this team would be incredible. But to pivot from that, I think my number one pick, which is the only one that didn't come off the board, would probably be Shalik Calhoun.
Okay.
Probably from his junior year, which I'm hoping / assuming falls into this window of 10 years. Again, talk about existential dread. I think this team has the potential. I would fully expect them to take a step forward in their pass rush between Windman and Brule and Bogle and the other guys that are coming back. Like, I think it'll get a lot better just naturally, but to add a stud and a guy that you really need to game plan for more than anything else, like Shalik Calhoun, would be such a massive add to this team. So I think that, that kind of cornerstone pass rusher would be the first one I would take.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
As I think more about who these 2 and 3 would be, I think I had a couple honorable mentions, so I'm going to just pull them up into the actual selection now.
Oh wow!
I'm going to go with Felton Davis.
Oh my God, you have taken my top 2 right there. I loved Felton Davis. No, this is great. This is awesome. We are on the same wavelength right now. Not only are we getting old together, but we are firing on all cylinders together for the bring 3 guys back routine.
I mean, dude, as much as we have what I think could be a very, very good receiving group, and I think Jaden Reed's probably still your number 1 in this scenario, Felton Davis just brings something that this group doesn't necessarily have. Like Coleman, Keon, total athletic freak. I think Trey Mosley's very underrated he's one of those guys that's so underrated that he's becoming properly rated. And
you're right.
And then Jaden Reed as an absolute stud, but they don't have that big body dude you can just throw the ball up to in the end zone. Maybe it's Malik Carr, but right now I would love to have a guy like Felton Davis back on this receiving core.
That's so strong. That is so strong. I love that.
And then if I had to take a third, all right, I'm going to steer away from the secondary just for fun. I'll take Kenneth Walker.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, it's a bit of a cop out, I suppose, but I loved, and that's not to disparage Jarek Broussard or Jalen Berger. Sure. I think that they could both be really very good players, but I mean, you have the chance to add, one of the best running backs in a single season that the school's ever had. That one to me would be a good one. Although it breaks my heart not to take Jeremy Langford, who will always be one of my favorites. Those are probably my 3, just because I wanted to stay away from this. I've got plenty of other honorable mentions for the other positions, but I want to hear where you're going, since I already stole 2 of yours.
No, and I think I was going to go number 1 with Felton Davis, and I was also going to contradict myself, because I was going to start this whole argument being well, I feel good about the linebackers next year, so I don't need a Joe Bacci or a Bola brother. I feel pretty good about where we're at with quarterback. I don't need a Connor Cook, and then I was going to go to the wide receiver room, which I feel great about already, and then just add Felton Davis to it. So I was going to be a complete hypocrite there. But you know what? I love the Shalik pick, but I'm going to pick the other guy I had for that same position for my number 1. And I also want to preface it with saying Jack Conklin is the correct answer. Darqueze Dennard is the correct answer. This is a very opinion-based conversation, but no, Conklin and Dennard are the correct answers for 1 and 2. So if I can go back, defensive end, Kenny Willekes, baby. Kenny Willekes. I love Kenny Willekes. Love Kenny Willekes. Just feel so bad for him that obviously he had a solid career, right? But might be forgotten about just because those were underwhelming seasons as a whole, for the team. I don't necessarily look back longingly at the Red Box Bowl or that whole season, but he balled out, or the Pinstripe Bowl. You get what I'm saying. I don't have to rehash all this.
Oh God, trauma.
Number 2. I'm sorry, that was unfair of me.
Go ahead. Moving on.
Hey, let me bring up something happy here. Okay, I got to caveat it with this. For the 3 months before this season, I'm going to need this guy in a treadmill, working his cardio up to being a triathlete, because I'm going to beat the brakes off of this guy. And I am talking about one Tony Lippett, Austin Smith. Oh. I'm talking about Tony Lippett. You get the cornerback. You get the wide receiver. Heck, I might have him lawn snap a few punts. I don't really care. I mean, he's going to be out there for about 170 snaps every Saturday because dynamic on defense, awesome on offense. So I'm going to go Tony Lippett right there. And then the third and final one, not in the Felton category, Shirley category, the K9 category. I'm sorry, Josiah Price. I would love to take you, but I'm feeling good enough about Daniel Barker this season. So give me, just to have some depth in the defensive secondary, Khari Willis. I'm going to go with Khari Willis right there. Give Xavier Henderson some help back there, some depth back there. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Khari Willis. He did just retire from NFL football. I think he's going to – I think he's like going more for like the I forgot what it is, religious figure out, like a pastor or something like that. But maybe we throw an NIL bag at him. He's got one more year of eligibility. Maybe I could have just made that up. It probably is. Probably the NCAA, but then like, what are they going to do? Like, just like, here's a slap on the wrist for you. Like, I don't care. So yeah, that's I think that's my third one. Khari Willis. Now on the board still, you got Le'Veon Bell. We talked about the running backs, of course. William Golston. He just barely hits the cutoff of the 10-year mark right there, and also Jarrell Worthy too. That's friend of the program, Jarrell Worthy, may I add.
There you go. So. Those are good choices. I totally forgot about Le'Veon Bell somehow, but I forgot, and I didn't even. Golston feels like he played at the school a million years ago.
Right, I know. Yeah.
I was also thinking some of my honorable mentions. You said Josiah Price, Aaron Burbridge.
Senior one of my favorites of all time. Yep.
Absolute freak show. Denikos Allen, I think, was one of mine, and Trey Waynes. Trey Waynes was a first-round pick. Like, people forget that he was extremely good at Michigan State. So those are some good. There's a lot of good ones, though. I mean, the secondary, I think, is a good spot for it. It does alarm me a little bit, like when I think about the tackles. There's really nobody else that I think I would really tap in from the last 10 years aside from Conklin. And yet there's how many bowl games, how many championships, like just what they've done with glue and duct tape and gum is pretty remarkable.
It is. And like also here, now this is like the super anxious part of me that's about to say this name or pair of names rather, but like Matt Coughlin or Michael Geiger. Now,
I was thinking Michael Geiger. That's a good one.
Because, like, look, I'm a guy. I don't like change. I hate change. Like, and when change happens, I get really jittery and like super anxious and whatever. And Matt Coughlin has been a staple in our lives the last 6 years, and it's great. It's awesome. We've had an awesome time. Again, yes, he missed some kicks in his career, of course, but like if you look at it as a whole, like he was like a tick above average for college kicking. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going to happen next year. I know that we have Jack Stone. I know he's a very highly rated kid. Highly rated kickers out of high school go south all the time. Like Steven Rusnak, I don't know. I saw him miss an extra point last year. I don't know. So like, will I be crying for just a guy that kicked 72% in his entire college career? I could. So catch me at like week 5 of this season coming up. I might be crawling on my knees towards Michael Geiger or Matt Coughlin here.
I mean, ask the University of Alabama what a bad kicker costs you. Like these great programs have bad kickers all the time. It's something I think we've actually kind of taken for granted, dating all the way back to like Paul Edinger, like to really date ourselves. Like you take that for granted. My fallback plan is to just let Bryce Behringer do everything.
I like that. Yeah, there we go.
I see no flaws in this plan.
I don't see any flaws whatsoever. Let's get to a hard-hitting question out of the mailbag. Now, it's time to wipe the smiles off your face because this is serious. We're in the nitty-gritty right now. Now, this is an idea that came from Nate, and he said he gave me a list of 10 college football head coaches and ranked them as father-in-laws for your team. We're going to pivot a little away from that. We're just going to talk about these guys as literal father-in-laws. And he also gave a star ranking for some of these. He dipped down to the SEC, like he gave Mike Leach a 5-star rating for what a father-in-law could be. But let's just stick to what Big Ten football coaches would be the best real father-in-law. And I'll name some right here. He gave Brett Bielema 5 stars. And he writes, when the family gets together, you know the food is going to be excellent and plentiful. Always good for another beer. Doesn't mind kicking back and having a good time. That checks out. He gave Mel Tucker 4 stars. The guy makes an impressive impression and is a standout role model for the kids. Relentless approach to work, can encroach on family time. But when he's not on the phone pitching the hell out of recruits, he definitely knows how to enjoy the finer things in life. And then he has PJ Fleck and Jim Harbaugh both sharing 1 stars. Jim Harbaugh saying that he's a fierce competitor, would go way too hard during all family games. And then PJ Fleck writes, would make a good first impression that would last about 15 minutes, then becomes unbearable. And yeah, so take it from here. Is there anyone that immediately sticks out to you for being what would be the ideal best father-in-law? And listen, I'll get out in front of it right now. Both our father-in-laws are incredible people. We love them both. So just in case.
Couldn't agree with that statement more. Scott, if you see this, I love you.
Yep. Gary, one time for Gary. So there we go. All right, on we go. Let's cover all our bases.
I think he did a good job, of explaining this. I will say my only feedback, I think the best one's got to be Bert. It has to be Bert. Because you want food, you want a party, you want a guy who has more money than he knows what to do with, and who's probably just looking to have a good time with his boys, probably golfs. Like, this guy seems like a great and doesn't really care. Like, in a way, he's like already made it. So he's sort of mailing it in, just like in general in life. So he's just like around, he's like, whatever, dude. It's just summer break from here on out. Right. No one really cares if I'm doing well. So that I think he's got to be up there. He's probably my number one. I think a sneaky one might actually be Kirk Ferentz, because it's another guy who, like, he's not going to be as engaging as Bert. He's not going to be as nearly as cool as Mel, but he's just like loaded beyond belief. The mayor of whatever town he's in. So you get the best seats at whatever restaurant you're going to, discounts wherever you are. You just say him Kirk's son-in-law. And I feel like that would carry a lot of weight in Iowa City or anywhere, wherever, this fictional thing is taking place.
You're a prince. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You're the prince. Exactly. You're like the favorite son. And, I think I think Kirk Ferentz is maybe a sleeper in this conversation, but the Fleck and Harbaugh, right down the middle with that analysis couldn't be more accurate. I also think that James Franklin falls into that bucket where he'd be like awesome when you first met him, like, this guy's cool, seems like a cool dude, and then after 15 minutes you're like, just jam my head in a door and like, just get me out of here.
That is hilarious because, Nate wrote in for James Franklin, gave him 3 stars, and pretty much just said what you did, worded differently. He said, there's a cool factor here, not bad to sit down with and watch a game. Unfortunately, the guy just talks too much and thinks he's a bit cooler than he actually is. Like, tell me that's not like the most bang on description. That completely hits it out of the park right there. I think, and this is in the same vein as like a Brett Bielema, I'm going to travel a little north. I feel like Paul Christ over in Wisconsin is kind of that ilk too. Like,
sleeper,
pretty down to earth guy, like he has a ton of money, but like he only spends maybe 3% of it the entire year. But part of that 3% is that he owns a boat, good days at the lake in the summer. That never goes bad. So yeah, I feel like Paul Christ, Brett Bielema would be pretty solid to have overall. And like, I'm trying to like Jeff Brown, I'm sure he'd be fine. That's a 3-star guy. Scott Frost, I don't know. You know what? I think Scott Frost,
intense for me.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how Nebraska's doing that year, right? Because like, there's no more miserable looking human being on this planet than Scott Frost when like Nebraska is staring like 4-8 in the barrel at the end of the season. But like, when the season's young, the optimism's high. You go back to those Big Ten media days, like when he was freshly hired. Like, hey, that's a spunky guy that's down for some fun. Like a nice breath of fresh air. But man, he's aged like a president in the last few years at Nebraska. It's not good.
Last year alone is like a 4-year term. Like, it's a full term, 8-year term. Just given how. So to use the father-in-law to weave that in here, I was watching last fall the Iowa-Nebraska game with my father-in-law, And Iowa's, getting their ass kicked. He's like, what's going on with Iowa? What's the deal here? He's like a good sports fan, but he's not as in the weeds as we are. And
so
I'm
he's
like,
a healthy sports fan. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he's a more sane individual. And he's like, he's like, I say to him, I'm like, just wait. I'm like, just give it a minute. And I'm like, Nebraska will find a way to blow this, and it will be spectacular. And it was arguably, aside from probably Michigan State, their most spectacular way to finding a way to lose moment of the year. And he's sitting there and he's just staring. He's like, wow, they really, you were right. He's like, they just every time something went wrong, they dropped the ball, they dropped a pass, fumble ball. He's just like, oh my God, these guys are cursed. He's like, couldn't believe it. So
it's been every Saturday. Every single Saturday. But no, I give Scott Frost a lot of credit just for surviving last season. Like I think I would have gone out with an aneurysm by like week 8 if I was in his situation. Like
would not have made it. Full agree.
And now I go back to the MSU Nebraska game, and it's like Nebraska obviously they botched the punt at the end, and like Scott Frost, I forgot what he said verbatim, but it was like I can't coach my players to do what we tell them, and I was like, oh, that's kind of off color. And then like as the season goes on, I'm like, he was actually probably in the right to say that. No, I want to know now.
He doubled and tripled down on that later too. Just got more specific as to what players he was talking about. Like he's starting very vague, where he's like, I can't be out there I can't be out there doing these things for you. And then he's like, it was the punter, and he is terrible. Yes. Like by the end of the season, he's just like getting so personal and specific with his attacks. So I don't know, man. I don't know what another year, if it's like that again, I don't know. Yeah. I think he might just give up coaching altogether. Like he could get another job somewhere, but if I'm him, I'm like, nah, this is me now. I can't do this anymore.
Go back to UCF. Be like the offensive analysis or analyst for Gus Malzahn. Yeah, just go where you were great.
Live somewhere else besides Nebraska. No offense to any Nebraska.
No offense. Yeah, to our strong contingent of Nebraska listeners. No offense. No offense.
Of course not.
But yeah, with that said, well, Austin, this was a hoot and a half, as it always is with you, and I cannot thank you enough for being generous with your time, your knowledge, and thanks for going through a quarter life crisis with me there for a hot second. Hey. Misery loves company, so look at us go.
Amen. Such is life as a sports fan. And one last thing to point out: if you're looking for good memories, there's peaches on this shirt, so just remember that.
That is what I'm talking about. What a walk-off right there. The Peach Bowl. Let's go, baby. Gang, thank you so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen. We will be back on Monday. Does Payton Kirkland commit? Does he not? Who's to say? And also, come on. Mailbag questions, lockedonspartans@gmail.com, or we'll find our own way to have some fun on Monday. Love every single one of you. You guys are the best. Go green. Let's go.